Naomi Sinclair had mastered the art of pretending long before the engagement party ever began. Inside Chicago's political elite, appearances mattered more than truth. Wealthy families survived scandals, betrayals, and corruption as long as their smiles remained polished beneath expensive lighting. Naomi understood that lesson since childhood. Her father, Senator Richard Sinclair, built his career by controlling narratives before problems could become public disasters. Every family photograph looked rehearsed. Every public appearance felt staged. Every conversation carried hidden expectations disguised as affection. Naomi became another carefully maintained symbol inside that machine. At 28, she represented perfection to the outside world. Beautiful, educated, sophisticated, the daughter of one of Illinois' most influential political dynasties. Magazine articles describe her as elegant and disciplined. Wealthy social circles admired her carefully controlled personality. None of them saw the exhaustion hidden behind her eyes. The engagement to Carter Hale had never belonged to her emotionally. It belonged to contracts, political favors, and financial alliances. Carter came from one of the richest business families in Chicago, and the union between the Hales and the Sinclairs promised influence powerful enough to secure elections, protect investments, and strengthen political networks throughout the Midwest. Naomi understood all of it. That understanding made the diamond ring on her finger feel less like love and more like handcuffs. The engagement celebration was scheduled inside the Grand Meridian Hotel, one of Chicago's most luxurious properties overlooking the glittering skyline near Lake Michigan. The hotel resembled a palace built for powerful people who wanted privacy disguised as elegance. Gold chandeliers illuminated endless marble floors while private security teams moved quietly behind hidden hallways and restricted elevators. Everything inside the building felt expensive. Everything also felt dangerous. As Naomi prepared inside her private suite hours before the celebration, she stood silently before a massive mirror while professional stylists adjusted her gown and jewelry. Her makeup appeared flawless beneath the soft lighting, but emotional exhaustion still lingered behind her expression. Outside her suite, powerful guests already filled the hotel. Politicians arrived through private entrances. Wealthy investors occupied reserved lounges. Men connected to criminal organizations moved carefully through the building pretending to be respectable businessmen. Chicago's elite world had always existed dangerously close to organized crime. Most people simply preferred pretending otherwise. Naomi heard the whispers even before the event officially started. Vincent Moretti had arrived. The reaction throughout the hotel shifted immediately after his name spread through the corridors. Security guards straightened nervously. Hotel managers lowered their voices. Several politicians quietly abandoned conversations and disappeared into private meeting rooms. Fear moved invisibly through the building. Naomi knew the reputation attached to the Moretti name. Everyone in Chicago did. Vincent Moretti was not publicly accused of crimes. Officially, he operated international investment companies, shipping corporations, and luxury real estate businesses. But beneath those polished public identities existed darker rumors connected to disappearances, bribery, and violence stretching across multiple cities. People feared Vincent Moretti because nobody truly understood how much power he controlled. Even more terrifying were the stories surrounding his family tragedy. Years earlier, Vincent's younger brother had been murdered under mysterious circumstances tied to political corruption and organized crime betrayal. Since then, Vincent Moretti had transformed into something colder and more dangerous than before. Some people described him as ruthless. Others described him as broken. Most refused discussing him at all. Naomi first noticed signs of trouble shortly after receiving the third anonymous warning message on her phone. Do not enter the ballroom tonight. The first warning had arrived that morning. The second came during makeup preparations. Now the third message appeared only minutes before the engagement celebration officially began. No sender information appeared beneath any of them. At first, Naomi assumed they were meaningless attempts to frighten her. Political families attracted threats constantly, but something about the timing unsettled her deeply, especially after noticing strange movements throughout the hotel. Additional security teams suddenly occupied service corridors. Certain elevators became restricted without explanation. Armed men disguised as hotel staff appeared near private entrances, leading toward the ballroom level. Naomi quietly asked one security officer about the increased activity. His nervous reaction frightened her more than his answer, because he refused making eye contact while insisting everything remained under control. Nothing inside the hotel felt controlled anymore. As guests gathered beneath enormous crystal chandeliers inside the ballroom, Naomi slowly walked through the crowd beside her father. Expensive perfume mixed with cigar smoke and old money arrogance. Wealthy socialites admired her dress while secretly judging everything about her existence. Several elite women from influential families whispered quietly about Naomi's mother, who had originally come from a working-class immigrant background before marrying Senator Sinclair decades earlier. The hidden racism inside those elite circles never disappeared. It simply learned how to hide behind politeness. Naomi ignored them outwardly while emotional exhaustion deepened internally. Across the ballroom, Carter Hale entertained investors while pretending confidence. But Naomi immediately noticed the tension hidden beneath his performance. Sweat glistened near his collar, despite the cold temperature inside the room. His hands trembled slightly while greeting political donors. For the first time, Naomi wondered whether Carter feared someone more powerful than himself. That realization unsettled her badly. Then she noticed Vincent Moretti. He stood near the far side of the ballroom, surrounded by several men dressed in dark, tailored suits. Unlike the politicians around him, Vincent did not appear desperate for attention. His calmness separated him from everyone else inside the room. Power followed him naturally. Conversations shifted whenever he moved. People watched him carefully without appearing obvious about it. But what disturbed Naomi most was Vincent's expression after his eyes landed on her. Recognition flashed across his face instantly. Not attraction, not curiosity. Recognition. Like someone staring directly at a memory they never escaped. The emotional intensity inside his gaze made Naomi's stomach tighten unexpectedly. Then Vincent's attention shifted toward the security teams surrounding the ballroom entrances. Something dangerous passed silently between them. Naomi suddenly felt trapped. Minutes later, before the official engagement announcement could begin, Naomi excused herself in the ballroom under the excuse of needing air. She moved quickly through a quieter service corridor near the underground parking structure while trying calming her breathing. The deeper she walked into the hotel, the stranger everything became. Hallways that should have contained hotel employees stood empty. Security cameras rotated unusually. Two unfamiliar men appeared briefly near the elevators before disappearing again. Fear crept slowly beneath Naomi's composure. Then the kidnapping happened with terrifying speed. A black van door opened beside the service entrance. Rough hands grabbed Naomi violently before she could scream. A cloth covered her mouth, while another man restrained her wrists. The world blurred into panic as she was dragged inside the vehicle. Within seconds, the van disappeared into Chicago traffic. Naomi's heartbeat thundered painfully as terror consumed her thoughts. The kidnapper spoke quietly about schedules, exchanged locations and payment instructions, while treating her like cargo instead of a human being. Hours later, Naomi found herself inside an abandoned warehouse near the industrial docks outside the city. Rust covered the steel walls. Broken windows allowed freezing wind inside the building. The kidnappers argued constantly while waiting for instructions from someone higher above them. One paced nervously, while another checked weapons repeatedly. Naomi realized quickly this was not a random kidnapping. Someone powerful wanted her alive, at least temporarily. Psychological terror settled heavier with every passing minute. Every sound inside the warehouse echoed endlessly. Every shadow felt threatening. Naomi struggled controlling her breathing while silently searching for possible escape routes. Then everything changed. The massive warehouse doors opened slowly. Silence spread instantly through the room. The kidnappers straightened nervously. Vincent Moretti entered beside several armed men dressed in dark suits. He did not raise his voice. He did not rush forward dramatically. His calmness felt far more terrifying. The kidnappers immediately began explaining themselves nervously, speaking about payment problems and unexpected complications. Vincent listened silently without interrupting. Then his eyes shifted toward Naomi. The emotional expression on his face unsettled her deeply, because he did not look surprised to see her. He looked haunted, like someone staring at a ghost. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Then one kidnapper panicked and reached toward a weapon. The gunshot exploded through the warehouse. Vincent shot the man himself without hesitation. Blood spread across the concrete floor, while the second kidnapper froze in terror. Vincent's men restrained him immediately. Naomi stared at Vincent in shock. She expected violence from someone like him, but not the terrifying emotional emptiness afterward. Vincent lowered the weapon slowly while keeping his attention fixed entirely on Naomi. That same haunted recognition remained inside his eyes. Naomi suddenly realized something horrifying. Vincent Moretti had not come there to rescue her. He came because someone connected to the kidnapping knew dangerous secrets involving her existence. And Vincent intended to bury those secrets permanently. Fear tangled together with curiosity inside Naomi's chest. Every instinct warned her to escape him immediately. Yet another part of her needed answers, because powerful men did not risk exposure over random political daughters. Something connected Naomi Sinclair to Vincent Moretti long before that night. Something old, something dangerous. While Vincent's men searched the warehouse office for evidence, Naomi noticed a partially open drawer nearby containing several photographs. Without thinking, she reached toward them carefully. The second she saw the image, the air disappeared from her lungs. The photograph showed Vincent Moretti standing beside a younger man Naomi assumed was his dead brother, and beside them stood Naomi's late mother. Naomi barely remembered leaving the warehouse after discovering the photograph. Shock followed her silently through the freezing Chicago night, while Vincent Moretti's convoy moved across the city beneath heavy rain. Questions crowded her mind endlessly, but fear prevented her from speaking. Every instinct warned her that the answers connected to her mother could destroy everything she believed about her family. Vincent sat across from her inside the armored vehicle without saying much. The dim city lights passing through the tinted windows occasionally illuminated his face, revealing an expression colder than anger. It looked like grief that had survived too long. The silence between them felt suffocating. Naomi noticed the security team speaking through hidden earpieces constantly. Several vehicles followed behind them, while another drove ahead, clearing intersections. Whoever orchestrated the kidnapping clearly frightened Vincent enough to mobilize an army around her. That realization terrified Naomi even more. When the convoy finally stopped, Naomi looked upward and realized they had arrived at one of the tallest private residential towers overlooking downtown Chicago. The building itself resembled a fortress disguised as luxury architecture. Armed guards occupied every entrance while surveillance cameras rotated across the exterior walls like mechanical predators. Nobody entered unnoticed. Nobody escaped easily either. Vincent escorted Naomi through a private elevator, requiring multiple security clearances before finally reaching the penthouse occupying the tower's highest floors. The doors opened into breathtaking luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glowing Chicago skyline, while polished black marble reflected soft golden lighting across enormous living spaces. Expensive artwork covered the walls beside antique furniture imported from Europe. Everything appeared elegant, powerful, and emotionally lifeless. The penthouse felt less like a home and more like a kingdom built for isolation. Naomi slowly walked deeper inside, while several house staff members lowered their eyes nervously as Vincent passed. Nobody spoke freely around him. Every movement carried tension. Fear lived permanently inside that penthouse. Vincent finally turned toward Naomi after dismissing the security teams. He informed her calmly that leaving the penthouse was impossible for now. Whoever arranged the kidnapping would likely attempt another attack after failing the first time. Until Vincent identified everyone involved, Naomi would remain under his protection. Protection sounded dangerously similar to imprisonment. Naomi demanded explanations about the photograph she found inside the warehouse. Vincent's expression hardened instantly. Instead of answering directly, he simply informed her that her mother had known his younger brother many years ago. Beyond that, he refused discussing anything further until he verified certain information himself. The vague response only deepened Naomi's fear, because powerful men never hid harmless truths. The days that followed slowly transformed the penthouse into an emotional prison. Naomi received luxurious accommodations, expensive clothing, unrestricted meals, and constant security. Yet beneath the surface comfort existed suffocating control. Security cameras watched nearly every hallway. Restricted doors required fingerprints Naomi did not possess. Armed guards occupied the elevator 24 hours a day. Vincent never needed chains. The penthouse itself became the cage. Naomi struggled emotionally against the isolation. News channels reported her kidnapping publicly, but political media manipulated the story carefully. Official reports described the event as a temporary security incident tied to anti-political extremists. No mention of Vincent Moretti appeared publicly. No mention of organized crime surfaced either. Someone powerful controlled the narrative already. Naomi spent hours staring across the skyline, wondering whether her father even cared about finding her or whether protecting political alliances mattered more. Deep down, she already suspected the answer. The only consistent disruption inside the penthouse came through Vanessa DeMarco. Vanessa entered Vincent's world like expensive perfume hiding poison beneath sweetness. Beautiful, wealthy, and socially untouchable, she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to manipulating powerful men. Naomi immediately recognized the hostility hidden beneath Vanessa's polished smile. Vanessa treated Naomi less like a kidnapping victim and more like an unwanted intruder contaminating elite space. During private dinners and social gatherings inside the penthouse, Vanessa repeatedly made subtle comments targeting Naomi's emotional vulnerability, her middle-class upbringing through her mother's side, and her sudden importance to Vincent. The insults rarely sounded direct. That made them crueler. Naomi noticed how certain wealthy guests follow Vanessa's lead. Political wives and billionaire investors quietly mocked Naomi's emotional instability while pretending sympathy. Several openly questioned why Vincent Moretti would risk security, resources, protecting someone connected to political families rather than organized crime. Class superiority infected every conversation. To them, Naomi represented weakness. Worse, she represented unpredictability. Vincent rarely responded publicly during those interactions, but Naomi noticed the emotional shift inside a room whenever his expression darkened. Conversations immediately quieted. Guests corrected themselves nervously. Even Chicago's elite feared crossing Vincent emotionally. The deeper Naomi observed the penthouse environment, the more unsettling details emerged. Security teams rotated constantly without explanation. Several guards carried visible injuries hidden beneath tailored suits. Staff members panicked over minor mistakes involving Vincent's schedule. One maid nearly burst into tears after accidentally serving incorrect wine during dinner. Nobody feared physical punishment. They feared disappointing him emotionally. Rumors surrounding Vincent's murdered brother spread quietly among employees. Naomi overheard fragmented conversations describing betrayal, disappearances, and political corruption connected to his death years earlier. Some whispered that Vincent never emotionally recovered afterward. Others claimed the murder transformed him into something far colder than before. Naomi began investigating privately whenever possible. Curiosity overpowered fear gradually. Late one night, while the penthouse remained unusually quiet, Naomi discovered a partially hidden office concealed behind one of the library walls. Inside, shelves contained thousands of financial records, coded documents, shipping manifests, and political donation files connected to powerful corporations. The deeper Naomi searched, the more horrifying the truth became. Trafficking operations disguised as immigration programs, payments connected to senators and federal judges, bribes hidden through international charities, entire systems built around buying silence. Naomi's hands trembled while reading the documents. Girls disappeared across multiple states, while politicians protected the networks responsible. Money mattered more than human lives. That realization shattered something inside her permanently. Before Naomi could continue searching, footsteps approached. Vincent stood silently in the doorway. For several seconds, neither spoke. Naomi expected rage. Instead, Vincent looked tired, emotionally exhausted in a way she had never noticed before. Rather than punishing her, he slowly entered the office and explained quietly that everything inside those files connected to the same network responsible for his brother's death. Powerful political families protected criminal organizations for decades, while innocent people suffered silently beneath them. Naomi realized then that Vincent's empire existed partly as a weapon against a system that destroyed his family. But that did not make him innocent. It simply made the truth more complicated. As days passed, psychological tension between them deepened strangely. Naomi still feared Vincent deeply, especially after witnessing flashes of violence hidden beneath his composure. Yet she also noticed moments impossible to reconcile with his reputation. He personally reviewed security footage every night to ensure Naomi remained safe. He ordered additional protection after receiving anonymous threats targeting her family. He quietly replaced one injured security guard's medical expenses without public acknowledgement. Small acts of humanity survived beneath the brutality. That contradiction disturbed Naomi more than violence itself. The emotional turning point arrived accidentally. One stormy evening, Naomi wandered deeper into the restricted east wing of the penthouse while searching for another hidden office. Instead, she discovered a locked memorial room. The space felt untouched by time. Photographs covered the walls beside old books, childhood trophies, and faded family pictures. Candles burned quietly near a large portrait showing Vincent standing beside his younger brother years earlier. For the first time since meeting him, Naomi saw evidence of who Vincent Moretti used to be before tragedy hollowed him emotionally. And inside that room, something changed in him too. Naomi noticed it immediately when Vincent entered behind her. The coldness disappeared from his expression completely. Near his brother's memorial, Vincent looked emotionally human again. Grief softened the dangerous sharpness inside his eyes. Naomi suddenly understood something terrifying. The dead still controlled Vincent Moretti more than the living ever could. That realization emotionally unsettled her far deeper than any threat, because broken men often became the most dangerous of all. Outside the penthouse, pressure continued rising. Rival mafia organizations began questioning Naomi's importance publicly. Federal investigators monitored Vincent's financial networks aggressively. Politicians secretly visited the penthouse at night, carrying briefcases filled with hidden documents and panic behind their smiles. Paranoia infected everyone. Even the security team seemed increasingly nervous. One guard disappeared entirely after a midnight argument near Vincent's office. Nobody mentioned him afterward. Then Naomi discovered the evidence that changed everything again. While investigating archive surveillance files hidden within the memorial room, she uncovered security footage dated shortly before Vincent's brother died years earlier. The footage showed her mother entering a private underground garage beneath an old Chicago hotel. Waiting for her was Vincent's younger brother. Naomi could no longer separate fear from truth after discovering the surveillance footage inside Vincent Moretti's memorial room. For days afterward, the image haunted her constantly. Her mother standing beside Vincent's younger brother inside a hidden underground garage shortly before his death shattered everything Naomi believed about her family's history. The elegant political world surrounding the Sinclair name suddenly felt built on lies buried beneath decades of silence. Inside the penthouse, tension deepened quietly. Vincent noticed the emotional shift in Naomi almost immediately. She spoke less during dinners. She avoided public rooms whenever politicians arrived for private meetings. Sleep became difficult beneath the constant awareness of surveillance cameras and armed security guarding every hallway. The penthouse no longer resembled luxury. It resembled a fortress preparing for war. Outside the windows, Chicago continued moving normally beneath glowing skyscrapers and endless traffic. But inside Vincent's world, paranoia spread like poison. Security teams doubled throughout the tower after reports surfaced about rival organizations meeting secretly across the city. Several Moretti-owned businesses experienced federal investigations unexpectedly. Armed vehicles appeared outside the building almost every night. Someone was preparing betrayal. Naomi sensed it everywhere. One evening, while Vincent attended a private political meeting downstairs, Naomi secretly returned to the restricted office hidden behind a library wall. She needed answers before fear completely consumed her. The deeper she searched through financial archives and encrypted files, the more horrifying the truth became. Trafficking operations stretched across multiple states under fake immigration charities. Women disappeared after accepting fraudulent employment offers connected to wealthy investors. Federal judges received hidden payments through offshore foundations. Powerful senators blackmailed journalists into silence. Entire political careers survived because innocent people vanished quietly. Naomi's breathing became uneven while reading the records. She had grown up around wealthy political families her entire life. She understood corruption existed behind closed doors. But this was something far darker. This was organized evil protected by government systems. And Vincent Moretti's empire existed directly inside it. For the first time, Naomi questioned whether Vincent truly controlled a criminal network, or whether he was simply another product of something older and far more dangerous. That realization terrified her deeply. While searching another locked cabinet, Naomi discovered hundreds of missing person files connected to young women across Chicago, New York, and Miami. Several disappeared after attending political fundraising events. Others vanished while working for luxury hotels tied to elite investors. Most investigations closed quietly within weeks. No arrests, no media attention, no justice. Naomi suddenly understood the horrifying reality behind Chicago's elite circles. Powerful people protected each other regardless of human cost. The emotional weight of that truth nearly overwhelmed her, because many of those same politicians once attended dinner parties inside her own childhood home. The sound of footsteps behind her caused Naomi to freeze instantly. Vincent stood silently near the doorway watching her. Unlike before, he did not seem angry about the investigation. He looked exhausted, as though he already knew the documents would eventually destroy her understanding of the world. Naomi finally demanded the truth about his brother. For several long seconds, Vincent said nothing. Then he slowly entered the office and closed the hidden door behind him. The silence inside the room felt heavier than fear itself. Vincent explained that his younger brother, Luca Moretti, had once tried exposing the political trafficking network years earlier after discovering connections between organized crime, wealthy investors, and government officials. Luca believed he could destroy the system by collecting evidence secretly. Instead, the system destroyed him first. According to Vincent, Luca disappeared shortly after meeting with Naomi's mother. His body was discovered weeks later near the Chicago River. Official reports described the death as gang-related violence. Vincent never believed that explanation. Neither did Naomi anymore. The emotional pain inside Vincent's expression unsettled her deeply while he described the aftermath. His brother's death shattered the remaining humanity inside the Moretti empire. Every alliance became transactional afterward. Every act of violence became easier. Grief transformed Vincent into someone feared across America. Yet beneath the brutality, Naomi sensed something else. Guilt. Like Vincent blamed himself for failing to protect the only person he ever truly trusted. That understanding complicated Naomi's emotions dangerously, because the monster she feared suddenly looked painfully human. Days later, another powerful figure entered the story. Federal investigator Damian Cross arrived unexpectedly inside the penthouse during one of Vincent's late-night political meetings. Damian carried himself differently from ordinary federal agents. Calm, intelligent, controlled, his expensive suits and confident posture blended naturally among wealthy elites despite the government badge hidden beneath his coat. Naomi immediately sensed danger around him. Unlike Vincent, Damian smiled often. That somehow made him more terrifying. Throughout the evening, Damian quietly observed everyone inside the penthouse while discussing federal investigations targeting rival mafia families. Publicly, he presented himself as an anti-corruption investigator working to dismantle organized crime across Chicago. Privately, Naomi noticed politicians treating him with nervous respect rather than trust. Vincent watched Damian carefully the entire night. The hostility between them felt old and deeply personal. Later, Naomi overheard fragments of conversation, revealing something disturbing. Damian Cross secretly manipulated both federal agencies and criminal organizations simultaneously. Certain investigations targeted rivals while protecting politically useful allies. Justice meant nothing to men like him. Control meant everything. The realization deepened Naomi's paranoia further. No institution remained trustworthy anymore. Not politics, not law enforcement, not organized crime. Every system connected secretly beneath the same corruption. Meanwhile, psychological warfare inside the penthouse intensified steadily. Vanessa DeMarco began spreading carefully crafted rumors throughout Chicago's elite social circles, portraying Naomi as emotionally unstable and dangerously manipulative. Wealthy media personalities suddenly questioned Naomi's kidnapping publicly. Anonymous tabloids implied she willingly disappeared before her engagement party due to scandalous relationships. The attacks felt coordinated, intentional, cruel. Naomi became isolated further while politicians and investors slowly distanced themselves from the Sinclair family. Even her father avoided direct communication after the negative media coverage expanded nationally. The silence from her family hurt more than public humiliation, because it confirmed what Naomi secretly feared all along. Protecting reputation mattered more to them than protecting her. Inside the penthouse, Vincent responded differently. Without explanation, several journalists responsible for false stories suddenly lost financial backing overnight. Political donors quietly abandoned television networks, attacking Naomi publicly. Entire media campaigns disappeared within days. Vincent never discussed his involvement directly, but Naomi understood. His protection extended far beyond physical security. That realization emotionally unsettled her more than threats ever could. As weeks passed, emotional tension between Naomi and Vincent deepened silently through small moments neither acknowledged openly. Vincent began trusting Naomi with increasingly sensitive information regarding political alliances and financial operations. Naomi noticed he spoke more honestly around her than around anyone else inside the penthouse. And for reasons she could not explain, she trusted him more than she trusted the world outside his walls. That frightened her deeply, because emotionally dangerous people often became hardest to escape. One night, Naomi accidentally witnessed the consequences of betrayal inside Vincent's organization. A security officer named Marcus was dragged into the underground level beneath the tower after secretly leaking information to rival families. Naomi never saw physical violence directly, but the fear spreading among Vincent's men afterward said enough. Nobody questioned Vincent publicly after that night. Nobody even spoke Marcus's name again. Psychological terror controlled the empire more effectively than bullets ever could. Yet Vincent himself appeared increasingly unstable emotionally. Sleep deprivation hollowed his expression further each day. He spent hours alone inside the memorial room dedicated to his brother. Some nights Naomi noticed him staring silently across the skyline, holding old photographs, while whiskey remained untouched beside him. The grief never left him. It simply learned how to wear expensive suits. Naomi eventually realized something painful. Vincent Moretti was not fighting to protect his empire anymore. He was fighting to destroy the people who corrupted it before they destroyed everyone else connected to him. That included her. The emotional turning point arrived during a private charity gala attended by Chicago's wealthiest political families. Naomi accompanied Vincent publicly for the first time since the kidnapping. The hostility from elite guests became immediately obvious. Several wealthy women whispered openly about Naomi's mother's improper background and questioned why Vincent involved himself with someone connected to political scandals. Others treated Naomi like damaged property rather than a human being. Class hatred disguised itself as sophistication. Racism disguised itself as tradition. Naomi endured it silently until one powerful senator made a cruel remark implying women from unstable bloodlines often attracted violence naturally. Vincent's reaction froze the entire room. He never raised his voice. He simply stared at the senator long enough for fear to silence everyone nearby. That terrifying calmness protected Naomi more effectively than any threat could. For the first time, Naomi realized the most dangerous men in Chicago feared Vincent emotionally more than legally. And strangely, part of her felt safer because of it. Later that same night, Naomi returned secretly to the hidden office, searching for evidence connecting her mother directly to Luca Moretti's murder. Instead, she discovered something far worse. A hidden audio recording buried beneath encrypted financial archives. Hands trembling, Naomi pressed play. The distorted voices inside the recording discussed Luca Moretti's investigation years earlier. Several names connected to politicians, judges, and organized crime figures appeared throughout the conversation. Then Naomi heard the final sentence clearly. Someone inside Vincent Moretti's own empire ordered his brother's murder. The recording changed everything inside Vincent Moretti's empire. Naomi barely slept after hearing the voice reveal that someone within Vincent's own organization ordered Luca Moretti's murder years earlier. The knowledge infected every hallway of the penthouse afterward. Every guard suddenly looked suspicious. Every political ally felt dangerous. Even simple conversations carried hidden tension beneath them. For the first time since arriving inside Vincent's world, Naomi understood the terrifying reality surrounding her. She was no longer simply a protected witness. She had become the emotional weakness inside one of the most feared criminal empires in America, and the underworld noticed immediately. The atmosphere across Chicago shifted within days. Rival mafia organizations stopped hiding their hostility toward Naomi publicly. Anonymous threats began appearing across social media platforms connected to elite political circles. News channels quietly spread rumors portraying Naomi as mentally unstable and dangerously manipulative. Several tabloids suggested she orchestrated her own kidnapping to gain public sympathy before her engagement. Someone wanted her reputation destroyed before destroying her physically. Vanessa DeMarco fueled the attacks expertly. At charity events and private political gatherings, Vanessa spread carefully crafted lies suggesting Naomi manipulated Vincent emotionally for protection and money. Wealthy social elites embraced the rumors eagerly. Naomi noticed the disgust hidden behind polite smiles whenever she appeared beside Vincent publicly. The humiliation became unbearable. Women from powerful political families whispered insults about Naomi's mother's lower-class background, while implying Naomi inherited emotional instability naturally. Elite businessmen treated her presence beside Vincent like evidence of scandal contaminating respectable society. Class hatred poisoned every room she entered. And beneath it all existed something even uglier: fear. Because Naomi represented disruption inside a world controlled by bloodlines, political dynasties, and carefully protected reputations. Her existence threatened secrets powerful people spent decades burying. Vincent responded to the growing hostility with terrifying calmness. Security inside the penthouse doubled overnight. Armed guards monitored every elevator and hallway continuously. Surveillance expanded across Vincent's businesses and political properties throughout Chicago. Rival organizations attempting contact with Naomi disappeared quietly from public view afterward. Nobody questioned Vincent's methods openly. Fear protected him better than loyalty ever could. Yet Naomi noticed something emotionally unsettling beneath his actions. Vincent no longer protected her simply because she possessed dangerous information. He protected her personally. That realization frightened the underworld far more than violence. Because powerful criminal empires depended on emotional detachment to survive. Love created weakness. Attachment created vulnerability. And Vincent Moretti, the man feared across America for his cold brutality, suddenly appeared emotionally compromised. The whisper spread rapidly through Chicago's criminal networks. Vincent Moretti was losing control because of Naomi Sinclair. The consequences arrived quickly. One evening, while Naomi attended a private fundraising gala beside Vincent, she noticed rival mafia leaders watching her openly from across the ballroom. Their expressions carried calculation rather than curiosity. Wealthy politicians nearby avoided eye contact completely. Everyone sensed war approaching. The ballroom itself reflected dangerous luxury. Crystal chandeliers illuminated marble floors, while politicians exchanged hidden bribes disguised as charity donations. Security guards blended among wealthy guests wearing tailored suits, hiding firearms beneath expensive fabric. Corruption surrounded Naomi everywhere, and for the first time, she fully understood her family helped build this world. That truth emotionally devastated her. During dinner, one influential businessman publicly questioned why Vincent risked political instability protecting a girl connected to collapsing family scandals. Another quietly implied Naomi's mother likely participated willingly in the trafficking networks before her death. The cruelty inside the room felt unbearable. Naomi's silence nearly shattered. Then Vincent calmly placed his glass down. The movement alone silenced nearby conversations instantly. He never raised his voice. He simply informed the table that anyone speaking about Naomi disrespectfully would no longer remain part of his political alliances. The threat sounded horrifying precisely because Vincent delivered it without emotion. Fear spread visibly across the ballroom afterward. Naomi suddenly realized something deeply unsettling. The underworld feared Vincent loving someone more than they feared his violence, because emotional attachment made dangerous men unpredictable. That same night, Vincent brought Naomi onto a private balcony overlooking Chicago's skyline after noticing her emotional exhaustion. Rain clouds gathered heavily above the city, while distant thunder echoed between skyscrapers. Neither spoke for several minutes. The silence between them no longer felt hostile. It felt fragile. Naomi finally admitted she no longer understood whether Vincent protected her out of guilt, obsession, or genuine concern. Vincent looked toward the city lights before answering quietly that he stopped understanding his own reasons long ago. The honesty inside that confession emotionally unsettled Naomi more than manipulation ever could. For the first time, Vincent appeared emotionally vulnerable instead of untouchable. And Naomi realized dangerous men often became most human around people capable of destroying them emotionally. The moment deepened something between them neither fully understood. Not romance, not trust, something more dangerous. Mutual loneliness. Back inside the penthouse, pressure intensified further. Federal investigations suddenly targeted several Moretti-owned businesses publicly, while rival mafia organizations expanded operations throughout Chicago aggressively. Damian Cross appeared repeatedly across national media, discussing organized crime investigations and political corruption. Publicly, Damian presented himself as a heroic federal investigator cleaning corruption from Chicago. Privately, Naomi increasingly recognized the manipulation beneath his polished image. Too many raids targeted Vincent's enemies while conveniently ignoring politicians tied directly to Damian's allies. Too many media leaks appeared strategically timed to weaken specific criminal families while strengthening others. Damian Cross did not want justice. He wanted control. Vince understood that better than anyone. Late one evening, Naomi accidentally overheard an argument between Vincent and several senior members of his organization inside the private office hidden behind the library wall. The discussion centered entirely around her. Some members demanded Naomi be handed over to federal authorities before rival families attacked the empire directly. Others believed killing her quietly would eliminate political pressure permanently. The betrayal hidden inside the conversation horrified Naomi. Men who served Vincent for years now questioned his judgment simply because he refused sacrificing her. Vincent's response silenced the room immediately. He informed them coldly that anyone threatening Naomi became his enemy regardless of past loyalty. The statement changed everything afterward. Fear spread through the organization rapidly because Vincent Moretti never made emotional decisions publicly before. That night, Naomi realized she'd become the center of a war larger than herself. And somewhere beneath the fear, guilt began consuming her emotionally. People were dying because Vincent refused abandoning her. The emotional pressure became unbearable over the following weeks. Naomi isolated herself increasingly inside the penthouse, while media attacks intensified nationwide. Protesters gathered outside political events carrying signs accusing Naomi's family of corruption and criminal ties. Anonymous threats flooded social media accounts connected to her childhood friends. Even her own father publicly distanced himself from her during televised interviews. The rejection emotionally broke something inside Naomi permanently. She spent hours alone staring across Chicago's skyline, wondering whether anyone in her life ever truly loved her beyond reputation and usefulness. Vincent noticed the emotional collapse immediately. Without explanation, he began staying inside the penthouse more often instead of attending public meetings personally. He reviewed security reports beside Naomi quietly during late nights. Some evenings they sat together near the memorial room, without speaking at all. Strangely, silence with Vincent felt safer than conversations with anyone else. The emotional intimacy developing between them happened through small acts neither acknowledged openly. A blanket left beside Naomi after she fell asleep on the couch reviewing documents. Vincent personally ensuring her favorite tea remained stocked despite never mentioning it. Naomi waiting awake until Vincent returned safely from dangerous meetings. Tiny moments of loyalty surviving inside violence and paranoia. That emotional closeness terrified them both, because attachment inside their world always ended in blood. Outside the penthouse walls, rival families prepared openly for war. Several Moretti allies disappeared mysteriously across Chicago. Armed confrontations erupted between criminal organizations near shipping ports connected to trafficking investigations. Politicians secretly fled the city while federal agencies increased surveillance across Vincent's businesses. The empire was beginning to fracture, and betrayal spread closest to home. Naomi noticed security teams behaving differently around Vincent. Guards whispered nervously after meetings. Financial advisors avoided direct eye contact. Several longtime loyalists suddenly vanished from public operations entirely. Someone inside the organization prepared to betray Vincent directly. The paranoia became suffocating. One stormy midnight, Naomi woke suddenly to the sound of raised voices somewhere inside the penthouse. Heavy rain battered the windows while thunder shook the skyline outside. She stepped carefully from bed toward the darkened hallway. The atmosphere felt wrong instantly. Too quiet, too tense. Then the sound came. Glass exploded violently beside her. A sniper bullet crashed through Naomi's bedroom window during the thunderstorm. After the sniper attack inside the penthouse, Chicago's criminal underworld stopped pretending peace still existed. The failed assassination attempt against Naomi Sinclair spread quietly through elite political circles within hours. Publicly, newspapers described the incident as an isolated act of violence connected to rising city crime. Privately, every mafia family understood the truth. Someone had openly declared war against Vincent Moretti, and Vincent responded exactly as feared. Within 2 days, 3 rival businesses connected to opposing criminal organizations burned mysteriously overnight. Several political officials secretly tied to trafficking investigations disappeared from public events without explanation. Armed Moretti security teams flooded luxury hotels, private clubs, and financial offices throughout downtown Chicago. The city itself began feeling unstable. Everyone sensed violence approaching. Yet despite the growing chaos, Naomi's engagement celebration resumed exactly 1 week later, inside the Blackwood Imperial Hotel. The decision shocked even Vincent's closest allies. Holding the event after the assassination attempt appeared reckless, almost suicidal. But canceling publicly would signal weakness to rival families and political enemies already questioning Vincent's control over Chicago. So the celebration moved forward beneath an atmosphere thick with paranoia. The ballroom radiated artificial perfection. Crystal chandeliers illuminated marble floors polished so brightly they reflected every expensive shoe crossing them. White roses decorated towering golden arches near the stage, while politicians and wealthy investors pretended normalcy beside armed security teams hidden discreetly among guests. Luxury disguised fear beautifully. Naomi felt suffocated the moment she entered the ballroom. The entire evening mirrored the night her life collapsed during the original engagement party. The same wealthy families attended. The same corrupt politicians smiled falsely beside criminal financiers. The same hidden deals moved silently beneath champagne glasses and elegant laughter. Only now Naomi understood the truth beneath their world. Every smile concealed survival instincts. Every conversation hid manipulation. And somewhere inside the ballroom, betrayal waited patiently. Vincent remained beside Naomi constantly throughout the evening. Unlike previous public appearances, he no longer pretended emotional distance existed between them. His attention followed Naomi instinctively across every room. Security teams adjusted positions whenever she moved. Politicians noticed immediately. Fear spread quietly among them afterward, because Vincent Moretti never protected anyone this openly before. The realization unsettled the criminal underworld more than any violent act ever could. Naomi sensed in the way rival mafia leaders watched Vincent throughout the evening, not with hatred alone, with concern, as though emotional attachment transformed him into something unpredictable and therefore dangerous. For the first time since entering Vincent's world, Naomi noticed fear inside him too. Not fear of enemies, fear of losing her. The realization emotionally destabilized her far more than threats ever had, because powerful men like Vincent were never supposed to care enough for fear to exist. Vanessa DeMarco exploited the emotional tension masterfully. Dressed in silver silk and diamonds glittering beneath ballroom lights, Vanessa moved elegantly through political circles, whispering poison into every conversation. Naomi overheard fragments repeatedly throughout the night. Vincent Moretti losing control. Naomi manipulating him emotionally. The Moretti empire weakening publicly. Certain politicians even suggested federal intervention might finally dismantle organized crime in Chicago permanently. Vanessa fueled every rumor carefully while maintaining flawless composure. But Naomi noticed something hidden beneath her elegance. Desperation. Because Vanessa understood something dangerous was happening inside Vincent emotionally, and it terrified her. Meanwhile, Damian Cross operated quietly across the ballroom like a man, controlling both sides of a chessboard simultaneously. Federal agents disguised as hotel security blended among guests, while criminal financiers secretly exchanged information beside the bar. Damian greeted senators, judges, and mafia representatives with equal comfort. Nobody fully trusted him, yet everyone feared him. Naomi realized Damian represented the future of corruption, not violent. Strategic, a system where criminals and politicians became impossible to separate completely. Throughout the evening, psychological warfare spread subtly across the ballroom. Rival leaders exchanged calculated insults disguised as polite conversation. Security teams watched each other more carefully than they watched entrances. Wealthy donors quietly fled early after sensing rising tension beneath the surface. Even the orchestra appeared nervous while performing. The entire ballroom felt like a battlefield, pretending to be civilized. Then the symbolic moment arrived. During a slow orchestral performance, Vincent unexpectedly reached for Naomi's hand in front of the entire ballroom. The movement froze nearby conversations instantly. Naomi understood the significance immediately. This mirrored the exact moment before her kidnapping weeks earlier, except now Vincent openly claimed her protection before Chicago's elite political and criminal powers. The ballroom floor suddenly felt emotionally dangerous. As Vincent guided Naomi into the center of the room, hundreds of eyes followed them silently. The atmosphere became suffocating. Naomi felt Vincent's hand tighten slightly around hers, while cameras flashed across the ballroom. Rival mafia leaders watched with open hostility now. Politicians whispered nervously near the exits. Even Vincent's own men appeared unsettled. Because emotional vulnerability weakened powerful empires faster than bullets ever could. While dancing slowly beneath golden lights, Naomi noticed exhaustion hidden beneath Vincent's calm expression. For weeks he carried the weight of betrayal, investigations, assassination attempts, and political warfare almost silently. Now the pressure finally showed. For the first time since meeting him, Vincent looked emotionally human instead of untouchable. That frightened Naomi deeply, because she realized she no longer feared him the way she once did. She feared losing him instead. The emotional attachment forming between them became impossible to deny afterward. Not love. Not yet. Something darker and far more dangerous. Dependency born from survival. Vincent leaned closer briefly during the dance, scanning the ballroom constantly while security shifted nervously near entrances. Naomi noticed subtle panic spreading among his men. Something was wrong. Then she saw it too. Several surveillance monitors near the ballroom bar suddenly flickered offline. One security guard pressed a hand to his earpiece before rushing toward Vincent urgently. Another disappeared toward the hotel elevators moments later. Security systems were failing internally. Someone compromised the hotel. Vincent realized it immediately. The emotional calm disappeared from his expression instantly. For several long seconds, the feared mafia don looked genuinely alarmed. Naomi suddenly understood the terrifying truth. Vincent risked exposing his empire publicly simply to keep her alive. And now that decision might destroy everything he built. The ballroom atmosphere shifted rapidly afterward. Guests sensed danger instinctively. Conversations became shorter. Politicians quietly moved toward private exits. Armed bodyguards repositioned around powerful families, while hotel staff disappeared entirely from visible areas. The illusion of safety collapsed. Vanessa approached Naomi unexpectedly near the dance floor afterward, her expression unreadable beneath polished elegance. Without directly threatening her, Vanessa implied people died whenever Vincent cared too much about someone. She referenced Vincent's murdered brother carefully, suggesting emotional weakness always invited betrayal inside powerful empires. The cruelty inside her words cut deeply because Naomi recognized a truth hidden inside them. Everyone Vincent loved eventually became a target, and Naomi had already become the center of a war-consuming Chicago. Across the ballroom, Vincent publicly confronted two rival mafia leaders regarding unauthorized armed movements near Moretti-owned properties. The discussion remained calm outwardly, but radiated violence beneath every sentence. Naomi watched powerful men quietly prepare for bloodshed while pretending diplomacy still existed. This was how criminal wars truly began, not through shouting, through silence. One rival leader finally implied Vincent's emotional decisions endangered the balance, protecting organized operations across Chicago. Another suggested Naomi should be surrendered before larger conflict erupted. Vincent's reaction chilled the entire ballroom. He informed them coldly that anyone touching Naomi would start a war none of them could survive. The statement spread through the room instantly. Fear followed immediately afterward, because Vincent Moretti rarely made threats publicly. And when he did, cities burned. Naomi suddenly understood the terrifying scale of what she meant to him now. He was willing to destroy alliances, political protections, and possibly his entire empire rather than sacrifice her. The realization emotionally overwhelmed her. Outside the ballroom windows, thunder rolled across Chicago while rain slammed violently against the glass towers surrounding downtown. Emergency vehicles moved somewhere in the distance below, their flashing lights reflecting faintly across the skyline. The city itself felt on edge. Then the betrayal finally arrived. Without warning, every ballroom exit locked simultaneously. The sound echoed sharply across the room. Heavy metal security barriers dropped over the doors, while lights flickered violently overhead. Guests screamed as armed men appeared across balconies, stairwells, and hotel entrances surrounding the ballroom floor. Security teams reached for hidden weapons instantly. Politicians panicked openly. And Vincent Moretti slowly stepped in front of Naomi as the entire hotel tower became surrounded. The moment the ballroom doors locked, panic exploded across the Blackwood Imperial Hotel. Screams shattered the artificial elegance that had hidden Chicago's corruption moments earlier. Politicians abandoned dignity immediately, pushing through terrified guests while armed security teams drew weapons beneath flashing chandeliers. Wealthy elites who spent years controlling entire industries suddenly looked helpless under the shadow of real violence. And Vincent Moretti remained completely still. That silence frightened Naomi more than the gunfire that followed seconds later. The first shots erupted from the upper balconies overlooking the ballroom floor. Crystals shattered across marble, while guests collapsed beneath overturned tables. Armed men stormed through service hallways simultaneously, firing into Moretti security teams already returning gunfire near the entrances. The hotel transformed into a battlefield instantly. Naomi froze briefly inside the chaos until Vincent grabbed her wrist and pulled her behind a marble support column as bullets ripped through the ballroom walls behind them. His calmness during violence felt terrifyingly practiced. This was not survival to Vincent. This was familiarity. Blood spread across the white ballroom floor, while smoke filled the air beneath flickering chandeliers. Politicians crawled desperately beneath tables beside criminal financiers who once considered themselves untouchable. Several armed guards died protecting senators already secretly preparing escape deals with rival organizations. Loyalty vanished quickly when survival became uncertain. Vincent's men fought aggressively near the main exits, but Naomi immediately noticed something horrifying. The attackers knew the hotel too well. They targeted security blind spots perfectly. Elevators stopped functioning simultaneously across multiple floors. Surveillance systems shut down section by section with military precision. Someone inside Vincent's organization betrayed them completely. The realization hit Vincent moments later, too. Naomi saw it immediately in his expression. Not surprise, disappointment, as though betrayal no longer shocked him anymore. One of Vincent's senior security commanders approached during the gunfire, blood covering his sleeve while reporting that several internal teams disappeared before the attack began. Traitors. Vincent ordered him to secure Naomi before turning toward the ballroom entrance, where heavily armed attackers advanced through smoke-covered corridors. Then Naomi witnessed the brutal side of Vincent Moretti fully for the first time. Not the emotionally controlled criminal strategist. Not the feared political manipulator. The monster Chicago whispered about privately. Vincent moved through violence with terrifying precision. Gunfire echoed around him while security teams collapsed beside shattered walls and burning decorations. He eliminated attackers without hesitation or emotional reaction, advancing through chaos like someone emotionally numb to death entirely. Naomi watched men fear Vincent more than bullets themselves. That realization emotionally devastated her, because beneath the brutality, she understood something horrifying. Violence shaped Vincent long before she entered his life. The ballroom descended deeper into destruction rapidly afterward. Explosions erupted somewhere below the hotel tower, shaking entire floors violently while fire alarms screamed throughout the building. Smoke spread through ventilation systems as terrified guests attempted escaping through blocked hallways already flooded with armed attackers. The empire was collapsing publicly, and someone wanted everyone trapped inside while it burned. Naomi and Vincent escaped the ballroom temporarily through a restricted security corridor hidden behind the stage area. Several surviving guards followed them through darkened service hallways, while emergency lights flashed red across the walls. The atmosphere felt apocalyptic. Bodies lay abandoned near elevators. Hotel staff members cried beside shattered kitchens. Sprinkler systems flooded entire corridors, while smoke drifted beneath broken ceiling panels. Innocent people were dying because powerful men wanted control. The truth emotionally crushed Naomi during those moments. For years, her family attended political dinners beside these same criminal alliances, pretending corruption remained distant from ordinary lives. But now she finally understood. The system destroyed everyone eventually, especially innocent people trapped beneath it. While moving to the lower service floors, Vincent suddenly stopped near a private security office overlooking downtown Chicago. Inside waited Damian Cross, perfectly calm, completely untouched by the chaos consuming the hotel. Federal agents surrounded him alongside several rival mafia representatives who should have been enemies moments earlier. The sight revealed the truth instantly. Damian manipulated both sides from the beginning. He used federal investigations to weaken specific organizations while quietly helping rival criminal families seize power afterward. Politicians, law enforcement, and organized crime were never separate systems. They were the same machine. Damian openly admitted the Moretti Empire had become politically inconvenient. Vincent growing emotional instability surrounding Naomi threatened alliances protecting corruption across Chicago for decades. Naomi realized with horror that powerful people feared Vincent loving someone more than they feared his violence, because emotional loyalty made him unpredictable, and unpredictable men destroyed systems built entirely on control. The confrontation exploded into gunfire moments later. Vincent's remaining loyalists engaged Damian's agents, while Naomi barely escaped another wave of bullets tearing through security office walls. The building trembled violently again as explosions erupted across lower floors. Someone planted explosives throughout the hotel beforehand. This was never simply an assassination attempt. It was extermination. During the escape through collapsing maintenance corridors, Naomi overheard fragments of another horrifying truth. Her mother knew about the trafficking operations years earlier. Not only knew, she tried exposing them. The revelation shattered Naomi emotionally. Vincent finally admitted her mother secretly worked beside his younger brother, gathering evidence against political figures tied to trafficking networks involving vulnerable women and children. They planned delivering the information publicly before Vincent's brother disappeared permanently. Then Naomi's mother died in what authorities falsely called a car accident weeks later. The truth destroyed something inside Naomi permanently. Her mother had not abandoned her emotionally. She was murdered trying to stop monsters protected by politics, wealth, and organized crime. Grief mixed violently with rage afterward. Vincent noticed the emotional devastation, but said nothing while guiding Naomi through collapsing corridors deeper inside the hotel tower. His silence carried guilt heavier than apologies ever could, because his empire helped create the world that killed her mother too. Outside the hotel, Chicago descended into chaos simultaneously. National media suddenly leaked financial documents exposing trafficking networks tied directly to senators, judges, corporate investors, and federal officials. News helicopters surrounded the burning tower, while federal raids targeted multiple properties connected to organized crime operations across the city. Vincent's empire was collapsing publicly, and Naomi realized something emotionally terrifying. Vincent planned for this. For years, every hidden financial document, every surveillance archive, every secret account connected to politicians and criminal organizations. He gathered evidence not to protect his empire, to destroy everyone responsible for corrupting it. Naomi finally understood the truth behind Vincent Moretti. He was never fighting to save the criminal world surrounding him. He wanted revenge against the system that destroyed his family long before Naomi entered his life. The realization changed everything emotionally, because beneath the violence and fear existed something tragically human. Vincent hated the empire as much as anyone trapped inside it. Back inside the collapsing hotel tower, betrayal struck again. Vanessa DeMarco finally revealed herself openly. Naomi discovered her waiting near the emergency evacuation floors beside heavily armed mercenaries connected to rival organizations. The elegant social manipulator no longer bothered hiding her hatred. Vanessa blamed Naomi entirely for Vincent's emotional collapse. She accused Naomi of turning the most powerful man in Chicago weak enough to destroy decades of carefully protected alliances. According to Vanessa, Vincent once understood survival required emotional detachment. Then Naomi appeared, and everything began breaking apart afterward. The confrontation turned violent quickly. Several guards died protecting Naomi, while Vincent engaged the mercenaries directly across smoke-filled hallways illuminated by spreading fire. Vanessa attempted escaping during the chaos, but one of Vincent's loyalists intercepted her near a damaged elevator shaft. Moments later, Vanessa disappeared into the burning lower floors after an explosion destroyed part of the corridor entirely. No body remained afterward, only fire. The destruction intensified relentlessly through the night. Explosions ripped through multiple levels of the hotel tower, while collapsing ceilings buried surviving guests beneath debris and flames. Federal agents surrounded surrounding streets, while rival organizations attempted escaping the city entirely before more evidence leaked publicly. Chicago itself felt like it was tearing apart, and through all of it, Vincent never stopped protecting Naomi, even while bleeding from gunshot wounds, even while watching his empire collapse around him, even while realizing most of his trusted allies either died or betrayed him completely. The emotional connection between them deepened painfully during those final hours inside the hotel, not through romance, through survival, shared grief, mutual destruction. Naomi no longer saw Vincent only as the feared mafia don controlling Chicago through violence. She saw a broken man consumed by revenge long before meeting her, and somehow that truth made losing him unbearable. Near sunrise, Vincent finally guided Naomi toward an emergency rooftop evacuation route, while flames consumed lower levels of the tower beneath them. The skyline glowed red behind black smoke pouring into the morning sky. Sirens echoed endlessly below. The Empire was dead, but before reaching the rooftop exit, another explosion erupted nearby violently. The corridor collapsed instantly. Vincent shoved Naomi behind reinforced concrete seconds before flames, and debris consumed the hallway around them. The blast separated them completely. Naomi screamed his name, while smoke swallowed the collapsing corridor hole. And Vincent Moretti disappeared inside the burning hotel after saving her from the explosion. 3 months after the destruction of the Blackwood Imperial Hotel, Chicago still looked wounded. The burned remains of the tower stood like a scar against the skyline, surrounded by fences, federal investigators, and endless media speculation. News channels continued debating the collapse of Vincent Moretti's empire daily, while politicians publicly denied connections to the corruption leaks that destroyed careers across the country. But beneath the public chaos, fear remained alive, because Vincent Moretti's body was never recovered from ruins, and powerful men feared ghosts more than corpses. Across America, criminal organizations fractured violently after the hotel massacre. Former allies fought openly for control over trafficking routes, financial operations, and political protection systems once controlled by the Moretti Empire. Murders increased throughout Chicago, New York, and Las Vegas, while federal agencies pretended they were finally winning the war against organized crime. In reality, the system simply changed owners. Naomi Sinclair understood that now. The peaceful life she attempted rebuilding never truly felt peaceful at all. She moved into a small apartment far from elite political districts and avoided public appearances completely. Officially, Naomi disappeared from social circles due to emotional trauma after surviving the hotel attack. Unofficially, she vanished because too many dangerous people still wanted her dead. Every morning she woke expecting bad news. Every night she checked locks repeatedly before sleeping. Trauma changed her permanently. Simple sounds triggered panic now. Elevator alarms reminded her of burning hotel corridors. Thunderstorms forced memories of shattered windows, and sniper attacks back into her mind violently. Even crowded restaurants became emotionally unbearable because wealthy laughter now reminded her of corruption hiding beneath expensive suits and polished smiles. The world no longer looked innocent to her. And Vincent Moretti remained trapped inside her thoughts constantly. That truth disturbed her most. Because despite everything, despite the violence, fear, and destruction surrounding him, Naomi missed him, not the feared mafia king, the broken man beneath the empire. The realization emotionally haunted her every day afterward. Meanwhile, Damian Cross emerged from the collapse stronger than ever. Publicly, Damian became celebrated as a federal investigator responsible for dismantling one of America's most dangerous criminal networks. News stations praised him constantly, while politicians positioned themselves beside him during anti-corruption campaigns. But Naomi knew the truth. Damian manipulated the war carefully from beginning. And now, he controlled the political vacuum Vincent's destruction created. Several surviving journalists investigating corruption leaks disappeared mysteriously within weeks. Witnesses connected to trafficking operations suddenly recanted testimony publicly. New criminal organizations rose quietly beneath Damian's protection, while federal agencies focused attention on smaller gangs instead. The machine survived. Only the faces changed. Naomi realized corruption was immortal because powerful people needed it to survive. That understanding emotionally exhausted her more than fear itself. One rainy evening, everything changed again. Naomi returned home from work to discover a plain envelope waiting beneath her apartment door. No return address appeared anywhere on it. Inside rested a single photograph. The image showed an abandoned underground train platform beneath Chicago, covered in graffiti and darkness. On the back, someone wrote 6 words carefully. "Truth survives beneath the cathedral." Naomi froze instantly. Only one person ever used language like that. Vincent. Fear and hope collided inside her violently afterward. She tried convincing herself the message could be manipulation from surviving enemies. A trap, psychological warfare, designed to lure her into danger again. But deep inside, Naomi already knew the truth. Vincent Moretti might still be alive. Over the following weeks, more coded messages appeared mysteriously. A newspaper clipping circled beside hidden financial account numbers. Coordinates leading toward abandoned underground tunnels beneath old Chicago districts. Fragment of information connected to secret vaults containing evidence against politicians and federal officials still operating freely. Vincent planned for survival long before the hotel collapsed, and someone wanted Naomi to follow the trail he left behind. The realization terrified her emotionally because it meant Vincent anticipated the destruction of his empire from beginning, perhaps even his own disappearance. Meanwhile, surviving enemies continued hunting her quietly. Naomi noticed unfamiliar vehicles outside her apartment repeatedly. 2 different men followed her after work within the same week. Someone hacked into her financial records attempting to trace hidden evidence connected to the Moretti investigations. Even after the empire's collapse, powerful people still considered her dangerous because Naomi knew too much. And somewhere beneath Chicago, hidden vaults likely contain enough evidence to destroy what remained of America's protected corruption networks completely. During this time, Naomi uncovered the final truth about her mother. Through hidden records Vincent secretly arranged before disappearing, Naomi learned her mother spent years gathering evidence against political trafficking operations connected to elite businessmen, senators, and organized crime leaders across multiple cities. She was not simply a victim. She was fighting them. The revelation emotionally devastated Naomi because it transformed her understanding of childhood completely. Her mother's emotional distance, secrecy, and paranoia suddenly made sense. She spent years trying to protect Naomi from monsters hiding behind wealth and political power, and it cost her life. Naomi cried for the first time in weeks afterward, not because of grief alone, because she finally understood she inherited her mother's war. The psychological paranoia surrounding Naomi intensified rapidly after that realization. She stopped trusting ordinary routines entirely. Elevators, subway stations, and crowded intersections all felt dangerous now. She carried hidden copies of financial evidence constantly while sleeping with lights on almost every night. Yet despite the fear consuming her life again, something stronger pushed her forward. Vincent, or perhaps the possibility of him. Naomi hated herself for how much that possibility mattered emotionally. The man she once feared became the only person who truly understood the darkness surrounding her life now. Everyone else either lied to her, manipulated her, or tried using her politically. Vincent protected her even while destroying himself. And that truth refused disappearing from her mind. One night, another coded message arrived hidden inside a library book Naomi checked out accidentally. Beneath St. Lazarus Cathedral. Midnight. No signature followed. Naomi immediately recognized the location. St. Lazarus Cathedral stood abandoned beneath Chicago's underground transit system after fires destroyed parts of the structure decades earlier. Rumors surrounding the tunnels beneath it spread for years through criminal circles. Hidden vaults, secret meetings, buried evidence. Vincent once mentioned the cathedral briefly during a conversation about forgotten places powerful people used for dangerous business long ago. Naomi spent hours debating whether to go. Logic warned her it was suicide. Emotion refused letting her walk away. By midnight, rain flooded Chicago streets while Naomi descended into the abandoned underground tunnels, carrying only a flashlight and the hidden financial files Vincent left behind months earlier. The deeper she traveled beneath the city, the more the atmosphere changed. The tunnels felt ancient and forgotten. Rusted train tracks disappeared into darkness, while water dripped steadily from cracked ceilings above. Graffiti covered old walls beside religious symbols left behind decades earlier by homeless survivors hiding underground. The city above felt impossibly distant. Eventually, Naomi reached the cathedral ruins. The sight stole her breath instantly. Massive stone arches rose from darkness beneath the underground tunnels, while broken stained glass windows reflected faint light across flooded floors. Old candles burned near shattered statues, as though someone maintained the abandoned place carefully despite its isolation. And Naomi realized she was not alone. Footsteps echoed softly across the cathedral ruins. Her heartbeat accelerated violently. Every survival instinct warned her to run. Then she saw him. Vincent Moretti stood motionless inside the shadows beneath the ruined cathedral ceiling, dressed in black beneath flickering candlelight. Alive. For several seconds, Naomi forgot how to breathe entirely. He looked thinner than before. Exhaustion darkened his expression, while scars from the hotel explosion marked parts of his face and hands visibly now. But his eyes remained unchanged, cold, haunted, and emotionally relieved the moment they found her standing there. Naomi felt anger, grief, fear, and hope crash together inside her so violently she nearly collapsed under the emotional weight of it. Because despite everything she survived after the hotel massacre, one truth suddenly became impossible to deny. She never stopped searching for him, emotionally either. Vincent stepped slowly from the shadows while rainwater echoed through the underground cathedral around them. And Naomi Sinclair realized the mafia king the underworld believed dead had been waiting for her beneath Chicago all along. The final confrontation did not begin with a gunshot. It began with silence beneath St. Lazarus Cathedral. Naomi stood motionless in the flooded underground chamber, staring at Vincent Moretti as if reality itself had fractured. The abandoned cathedral, once a forgotten relic beneath Chicago, now became the center of everything that had been building for years. Betrayal, corruption, revenge, and buried truth. And somewhere above them, the world was already collapsing. Federal forces surrounded surface access points. Mafia families moved in coordinated aggression across multiple districts. Politicians scrambled to erase evidence that was already being broadcast publicly through leaked financial networks Vincent had planted long ago. The empire was not falling. It was being dismantled. Systematically. Intentionally. Vincent finally stepped forward from the shadows, his presence no longer terrifying in the way it once was. Something in him had changed since the explosion. The violence still lived inside him, but it was no longer controlled by hatred alone. It was controlled by choice. Naomi noticed it immediately. He was not fighting to survive anymore. He was preparing to end everything. Around them, distant echoes of gunfire traveled through underground tunnels. Rival mafia factions had reached the cathedral entrances. Damian Cross's federal units were moving in from multiple directions, sealing escape routes while publicly broadcasting final operation success statements to media outlets. But Damian was not controlling the outcome anymore. He was reacting to it. Vincent had already released everything. Every hidden financial record tied to senators, judges, trafficking networks, and political blackmail systems had been exposed publicly within the last hour. Entire careers collapsed in real time. Emergency government meetings were being held across Washington, while media networks struggled to contain the magnitude of the exposure. For decades, corruption survived because it was hidden. Now it was visible, and visibility destroyed control. Naomi finally understood the truth behind her kidnapping years earlier. It was never random. It was connected to her mother. Her mother had discovered financial transfers linking elite political families to trafficking routes protected by Moretti-controlled intermediaries. When she attempted to expose it, she unknowingly crossed paths with Vincent's younger brother, who was gathering the same evidence from the opposite side of the system. Both were eliminated, not by accident, by coordination. Damian Cross had ensured silence through federal manipulation, while Vanessa DeMarco spread misinformation through elite social networks, framing deaths as unrelated tragedies. The truth had been buried under two systems pretending to oppose each other, law and crime working together when necessary. Naomi's voice trembled for the first time as she processed it fully. Her mother had not been collateral damage. She had been a target. Vincent watched Naomi silently as she absorbed the weight of everything. For years, he had carried rage against the system that destroyed his family. But seeing Naomi break under the truth changed something fundamental inside him, because her pain mirrored his own too closely. And for the first time in his life, Vincent Moretti looked tired of being the weapon everyone built him into. Above them, explosions echoed through Chicago's financial districts. Rival families began turning on each other openly. Damian Cross attempted restoring federal control through emergency authority, but even his influence was collapsing under public exposure. The system was eating itself alive. Inside the cathedral, Vanessa DeMarco appeared briefly at the far end of the chamber, accompanied by armed mercenaries. Her expression no longer carried elegance or manipulation. Only desperation remained. She tried to speak. Vincent stopped her without hesitation, not with violence first. With truth, he revealed everything she had done. The manipulation, the framing of innocent deaths, the coordinated betrayal that kept the system alive for years. Vanessa's control over elite networks shattered instantly as loyalists abandoned her. For the first time, she had no audience left to manipulate. Damian Cross arrived moments later through a secondary tunnel entrance, flanked by federal agents who no longer trusted him fully. His authority had weakened significantly after public leaks exposed his dual involvement in both enforcement and organized corruption. He was no longer a protector of law. He was a participant in its decay. Damian attempted to negotiate control over remaining networks, but Vincent did not respond with anger. He responded with finality. The evidence had already been released. There was nothing left to bargain with. The empire was already dead. What remained was consequence. As tensions escalated, rival mafia leaders entered the cathedral from different directions, forming a chaotic standoff beneath fractured stone arches. Weapons raised, alliances broken, fear replacing strategy completely. Naomi stood at the center of it all, and yet Vincent moved closer to her instead of away from the chaos. The moment felt surreal, like time itself had slowed to observe something irreversible. Vincent finally spoke. Not as a mafia king, not as a criminal architect, but as a man who had carried too much for too long. He admitted everything Naomi had suspected but never fully understood. Her kidnapping years earlier was not random. It was a consequence of overlapping investigations between her mother and his brother. Two innocent people trying to expose corruption from opposite directions had created a threat large enough to trigger elimination protocols from both political and criminal systems. And Vincent had spent his entire life inside the aftermath. Naomi's breath trembled as she realized the depth of it. Her suffering was not isolated. It was inherited. Vincent had not been watching her out of obsession alone. He had been watching her because she was the only surviving link to the truth he lost years ago. And then Vincent said something that broke everything remaining inside him. Naomi Sinclair was the first person who ever made him question whether he needed to remain a monster to survive. Not power, not revenge. Her existence alone disrupted the identity he had built from pain. Silence fell between them as distant explosions continued shaking the underground cathedral. Naomi looked at him differently now, not with fear, not with confusion, but with understanding that arrived too late to change what he had already become. The final confrontation erupted outside the cathedral chambers as federal agents and remaining mafia forces clashed violently in collapsing tunnels. Damian Cross attempted to assert final control, but his influence disintegrated under competing factions and exposed corruption evidence now circulating globally. Vanessa attempted escape, but was intercepted near the outer tunnels, her fate collapsing into the same system she once manipulated. Everything ended the way it began, with control dissolving into chaos. Inside the cathedral, Vincent made his final decision. He chose sacrifice, not survival, not dominance. He activated the final collapse sequence embedded within the underground vault system, not as destruction for revenge, but as closure for everything the system had built on stolen lives and buried truth. The cathedral trembled violently as structural failures spread across surrounding tunnels. Water surged through broken foundations. Light flickered across ancient stone as the underground world began collapsing into itself. Naomi realized what he was doing instantly. He was erasing the remaining infrastructure that still connected corruption to power. Permanently. She reached for him as panic surged through her body, but Vincent gently held her hand for the first time without violence, without control, without fear. Only truth remained in his expression. For the first time in his life, Vincent Moretti was not holding on to power. He was letting it go. The cathedral shook violently as final collapse systems activated across multiple underground sectors. The sound of breaking stone echoed like thunder beneath Chicago's foundation. Naomi refused to let go of his hand, and Vincent did not pull away. In that moment, everything that defined them, fear, violence, betrayal, survival, stopped mattering. Only existence remained. Together, above them, the world above continued falling apart as corruption networks collapsed publicly across governments, corporations, and criminal empires simultaneously. Power structures that survived for decades disintegrated within hours. But beneath it all, something quieter was ending too. Vincent Moretti's war. Naomi finally understood the truth fully. He was never trying to build an empire. He was trying to end one. A system that destroyed his family, her family, and countless others long, before either of them had a chance to escape it. As the cathedral ceiling began fracturing overhead, Vincent pulled Naomi closer one final time. Not as a criminal, not as a king, but as someone finally choosing humanity over legacy. And then everything collapsed into light and dust. In the aftermath, federal forces surrounded the burning remains of the underground cathedral system. Rescue teams attempted entry through collapsed tunnels, while news outlets broadcast global coverage of corruption exposure and mass political fallout. Damian Cross attempted to assert authority over remaining operations, but was detained amid investigations into his dual manipulation of federal and criminal systems. Vanessa DeMarco's network dissolved entirely as her influence disappeared with the collapse of elite protection structures. The empire was gone, completely. Yet as officials documented the ruins beneath Chicago, one truth remained unanswered. Vincent Moretti's body was never recovered from the ruins. Only silence remained where the king once stood, and Naomi Sinclair, standing at the edge of the burning cathedral entrance, finally understood that survival was no longer about escaping monsters. It was about learning how to live after they chose to disappear.